Welcome to Connecting the Dots, the podcast where we share our stories from the battlefield of consulting. I'm your host, Johnny Jingle All the Way Hill.
And I'm Pamela Peace on Earth Crozier.
Hey, I'm Kareem Kringle Jamal.
I'm Festive Phil Gambling.
Hey, I'm Bruno Baltasar Berizo.
So we have something special in store today. Remember that app we built last year for Santa? Well, initial reviews are in and mostly positive. So Santa wants us to go ahead and start planning out next steps for a 2.0 release. And just like last time, this will be more of a behind the scenes look at how we could approach this type of project. So grab some hot cocoa, settle in by the fire, and let's get started. Okay, so before we get into what we want to do next, let's take a quick step back and just kind of assess how things are currently. So overall, Santa's very happy with the direction things are going. The first version of the app has been generally pretty well received. There's been some criticisms here and there, which we'll go over in a second, but overall, he's happy with how things are going and wants to continue coming up with improvements and revisions and things like that. The current version of the app is only available in the US, with hopes to extend that to wider audiences in the future if we can. The way that it primarily works is parents are able to send in reports to Santa directly. They can send one report a day, but unfortunately that report is limited to 140 characters at the time, which there's been some pushback against. There's also pretty limited monitoring on the social platforms like Twitter. It's really only using hashtags. There's not like semantic monitoring of full text or anything like that. Some users are totally fine with that. Some users don't even want social monitoring. So that's a little bit of a weird case there. Currently, the app is just a web app. There's nothing native like on iOS or Android. And it only factors in about the last 12 months worth of data. There's not like a long-term storage of the list or naughty or niceness of any of the users being kind of tracked by Santa. And Santa's list itself is not updating in real time. It can update once an hour. There's just some technical restrictions there. So we'd like to see what we can do to improve that. There was also some concern initially when this app was being rolled out amongst the elves that they might have to find new jobs, which we were able to mostly avoid. Pretty much all of the elves that were affected in the list department have been moved to either toy making or transitioned into more of a technical app support role. So kind of dodged a bullet there. Everyone's happy, and no labor issues right now at the North Pole, which we're very grateful for. And overall, the reviews for the app have been pretty positive. Reviewers praise the ability for parents to be able to report their kids, but they mentioned that the 1 day, like one report per day limit, it seemed a little bit arbitrary, and felt like that should be expanded in one way or another. And they also some mentioned that the social media monitoring was kind of lacking, while others mentioned that it seemed unnecessary to begin with. And lastly, some reviewers mentioned that native app support would be nice rather than it being a web app. The biggest complaint, however, has been from international audiences wanting access to this app, but it's currently only running in the US. So those are kind of the current notes on how things are going, and that Santa would like us to take into consideration as we address and think about like the kind of 2.0 follow-up release. And there's also been some developments where Santa is looking at potentially partnering with other people who are active this time of year and giving gifts. For example, the Three Magic Kings are interested in working with Santa. So let's actually, for that, get a quick rundown of who the Three Magic Kings are and kind of how they operate.
So there are three magic kings that the story tells they came to the side when Jesus Christ was born, and they bring presents to the kid. So the use is that they every 6th of January they came to the home and left presents to the kids on the house that left his shoes out. So you need to lift your shoes out of the house, and the presents are put in there. Also, you need to bring food to the magic kings and the camels. So there is a preparation phase that you can just. I remember going to the park and just cut some grass with my hands and pick a big bowl of grass on the other side of my house and a big bowl of water for the camels. So was pretty magical because the next day you see that things disappear. So there's no doubt that they were there. So yeah, I think that is basically, there is no a big party around it or nothing. It's just the preparation of the place when the camels are going to be, and lift your shoes out, and that's basically it.
Well,
go ahead,
well, to add, so in the United States, we're celebrating what I've been celebrating it from being Puerto Rican is we don't do shoes. We have shoe boxes, and then we go outside and get all the grass from the camels, and then put them in the shoe boxes and leave them out. And we always put carrots in the shoe boxes.
All right. Yeah, the thing about the shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing about the shoes is not. I remember doing that in Uruguay, but here in Tenerife, they don't leave the shoes out. They just left the food for the camels and the water and something like a beer or something for the three kings, but not the shoes. The shoes is kind of, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how that came up to be, but I remember doing that in Uruguay.
That is good context though, because it brings up the point. So Santa delivers whether you're naughty or nice, right? So if you're nice, you get a present. Does it similarly apply here where it's conditional, and if you don't put out shoes or grass, you don't get a gift? Is that something that needs to be considered as you at time of delivery?
That's a good question.
I think so, yes. I mean, for me, I remember like being concerned about left my shoes out, because if I not put my shoes out, the kings will not know that there's a kid in that house that need a present.
It's your way of opting in and agreeing that the kings can sell your data.
So
yeah,
your name might be on the list, but you might forget to do it, and then the three kings end up with the surplus of gifts at the end that they are updating on their list in real time, right? Like, hey, I didn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. You need a shoe detector or something.
Right.
So now the question is, Santa's come back and said, hey, where can we take this next? What's kind of some low-hanging fruit solutions, and we kind of talking through how could this continue to improve.
So first thing is we need to figure out scope, right? Because that's a long list of stuff, almost as long as Santa's list, right? And we only have 3.5 days until Christmas or something that we need to get this out, right? So we have to be very focused on what we're tackling. Do we know if he's gonna reach out to the remote elves at the South Pole to help with some of this?
I didn't know there were elves at the.
I didn't know there were elves at the South Pole.
I thought it was like the penguins are on one pole and polar bears are on the other.
Is he going to let us tap into that Christmas magic though, and dilate time so that we can actually stretch 3 days into weeks? He does reach every child in one night.
We do need to remember there is an internal support team of elves supporting the app, so we can definitely leverage some of their expertise.
I guess the biggest what we wanted to do, because we were only US only before and going international, it's like, how can we take what we have now and push that internationally? Because it seems that Santa can make it happen internationally, and why can't we do this app internationally? So I think that is the biggest struggle that we had before, and how is there any way, or what pieces of it could stretch internationally? What needs to be done to make that happen?
Probably you can take what you have right now and just, I'm thinking on making it internationally without blowing up the team on the other side, because the number of users is going to blow up, right?
Right.
And so probably you can have it just localize it, so people can use different languages at least to consume and use the application. Probably get something else done on the supporting side, so they can really support the application with that amount of traffic. I was looking really at the first point on the feedback that says only one report by day, and thinking, okay, if you extend that to, let's say, 2 reports by day, that doubles the number of data that you need to handle. So making that internationally is going to just blow up the support team on the other side. So
and there's nothing that says we have to go immediately from US only, and then all of a sudden every other country is supported. It can be a
But what if there was a way to just simplify it and make it international? Like, so we could have an international app. Say, what if we scrapped everything they have and just took it all to TikTok? Because
I mean,
that's-
is
You
then
just
people can
DM
give their
Santa on TikTok.
you can just put your feedback in. I don't know, like if there's a way to have a wider reach, because maybe when we did it last year, we were too confined with our requirements. I mean, I know we only have a week to do this, but I was just thinking, how do we simply take it internationally?
So rather than like more like tweet at Santa than
Yeah,
actually
something
use a
more
custom
simple.
app and
Mhm.
let them
But then
handle
on-
the localization. Because really, I guess I was thinking about the localization. It's just the submission of reports. I think we can reasonably expect that Santa can still just use English or whatever default elf language
Right.
that they've been using for the Santa facing side
Yeah.
of this platform.
At the
It's just
back
really
end.
like that form where they submit reports that we really need to localize, not taking into account scaling issues that Bruno is bringing up.
And don't forget, it has been a year. So last year, we were doing, AI recognition and analysis of the text-based submissions, right? But now we're at a point where we can do that on video to some extent, right? So TikTok really wouldn't be out of the question if we can configure it correctly. And that helps us get, away from the 140 character limit as well. You can have like a couple-minute video going.
So are we
The only-
parents just walking around recording their children?
The only problem is you have to get all the parents on TikTok.
And then, well, they
And the
already
kids,
are.
the kids
Yeah.
don't want the parents on TikTok. So that's
No, you can't
And
follow
then
your
do we
kids.
want them posting their bad behavior publicly to TikTok?
Absolutely not. Okay, bad idea. This public shaming.
But
Okay.
but I think it's worth saying what are existing tools we could leverage and then
Mhm.
just use an API to kind of pull things in.
Or are we, to get at the one report per day, I think we limited that due to concerns about also how fast our AI model could process that. How happy were we with how the AI analyzed all of these submissions? Because maybe that's been tuned and is more optimized now and can handle a higher load of reports.
Or we can spin up a bunch of clusters, right?
Yeah,
As
you
well,
have new
Per parallel
machines
per
also.
country. Yeah. So we scale it up with the number of countries we have, and have several clusters going processing per region.
So I think one key part we haven't talked about is is this a free app that is just publicly available? Like, how is Santa paying for all of those servers? Or is that just Christmas magic?
It's Christmas magic.
He keeps
can
Because no one's gonna use it if
That
it's
is
a
that
paid
is
thing,
the
but-
love that children have for Santa.
Exactly.
That is what
That's
fuels
what's
his
paying
entire
us.
operation.
Okay.
he keeps
Unlimited
the leftover
budget.
toys for himself and then puts it on
The
eBay.
entire economic model of the North Pole is baffling to me. So
It's based on love.
I
Okay.
think he had some Bitcoin at some point.
that explains it.
Well, if that's true, then we might,
Well,
we
now
might
he's
have to
broke.
really scale back.
Okay, so yeah, I think a key factor we talked about that's come up a few times is like the only being able to send one report a day. Is there maybe it's like the report sends at the end of the day, but parents can be populating it throughout the day as they notice things, and then like it's on a like automatic sending schedule rather than like, oh, I've filled out everything and then I sent it, and then 10 seconds later, like, is there some way we can not increase the burden of having like unlimited reports available, but make it easier for parents to like still catch
Like,
stuff?
I want to revise today's report from a positive to a negative.
Right. So maybe it's like it's
I
a
don't
draft.
think you can do that. There's no revisions. You have to submit a new report, right?
It's immutable. Yeah.
Currently, yes.
Once it's submitted, it's submitted.
Well, and that's another good point. Like there's the localization in terms of language, but also localization in terms of like expectations for what
Right.
Christmas looks like. Do people open all of their gifts on Christmas? Or do people open like one gift every day leading up to Christmas because there's going to be different ways that's done. And
But
I know there's
Santa
also-
delivers everything on Christmas Eve, right? Does that
Correct.
does he have
the-
special
in the
agreements
US.
with different countries?
Santa has one night, Phil.
Yeah.
One night only.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Johnny's making it sound like we actually have to just roll this out even sooner. I think we can't bring it in any
No.
earlier.
I'm just
But
saying if it's a different cultural expectation in Spain or in Uruguay or wherever, that's something we just need to take into.
But if we're talking about if he's merging with the Three Kings, then a present comes on January 6th.
Yeah.
Oh, so we have
So
more
we have a
time.
little more time.
But no, but the Three Kings.
Oh,
do.
really? It's two instances
separate.
of
Yeah.
Okay.
gift
You
get-
delivery.
Santa gifts or Christmas gifts, all of the things, and then the Three Kings on January 6th.
So
I
there's
mean, so what's driving the merger between Santa and the Three Kings? I mean, do they have some good chemistry, or is it something else? Or because the dates are obviously different and they take different things into account. Santa has a list. Do the Three Kings have really a list? Is it just a list of names that you don't need to submit good or bad videos or reports for?
I've never questioned it. I just get my gift.
I don't
You're
think
always
so.
good, Pam. I mean,
'Cause are we trying to merge two very different personas
Yes.
into one
Yes.
app, right?
I think
Yes.
that the Three Kings were, at least in Uruguay and Europe in general, they were first, and Santa came later. So
Based on
Um,
Epiphany. Mhm.
yeah, yeah, something like that. So probably the Three Kings want to buy Santa stuff, like buy it as a product and integrate it in
Oh.
his thing.
So it's like a white label thing, right? They want a version
I
of it. They don't
think
want
so.
one universal
Yeah.
app. They want their
Okay.
own white label version of it. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
that would
because
help with
Santa was
Santa's
not
economic
what's not a
model, too.
thing
Okay.
here.
So
Santa,
now-
they were not even giving presents to the kids on Christmas here, up until like 10 years ago.
so they want to make use of Santa's
App.
delivery
Platform.
app, like tracking
Mm.
infrastructure, not so
Oh,
much
okay.
the naughty or nice, but more the like where they
The
are, who they
tracking.
are, and
So-
where gifts delivered.
Interesting.
then-
Yeah,
are we moving this to sort of a licensing model versus a custom app model?
I think we need to get it in a solid place where we can begin to license. I don't think version 1 is really in a license place.
Not
You
yet.
think? Not yet.
No.
I
no.
think if we put some of once we get our requirements down, if we're able to implement some of these, maybe one or two things that really would make a big difference, then we could get it into a place where we could maybe license and ship with that.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's Santa and then the Three Kings, and then who knows who's next, right?
Right.
Might be
Your
another
buddy.
player.
Well, and I
Yeah,
think that's a key
seriously.
part. Like
Tooth Fairy.
for the version 1, the main functionality was like naughty or nice monitoring
Right.
and reporting. Whereas it sounds like what some of like the Three Kings and others are interested in licensing is more of the like keeping track of, all right, who's gotten their gifts, who's still yet to be delivered, like more tracking the actual like night of delivery rather than leading up who's on what lists.
also you can put something like I will guess that the Kings will like to have some details about the presents, like okay, this kid
Mm.
receives
Or like last
a
year they got this.
Yeah, exactly.
okay.
Probably the next year they will want this other thing, so they can tell the parents, "Hey, your kid may like this," or kind of like marketplace or something.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And
So
then
there's
how
so
do
that-
the Three Kings operate? Are they all going at once to each house, or are they splitting the duties and going across? At which point we need real-time collaboration, because they're all updating the list at once.
It was like now this is more than just a single user.
Yep. I think we need to
Yeah.
back this up.
Well, and this also gets into issues with like, so we were talking about how the current app only has 12 months worth of data, and that's just
Mhm.
naughty and nice data. That's not, oh, this person got a skateboard, this person got a Barbie, this person or whatever. Like we're not currently keeping any of that. So that's other stuff to take into
But
consideration.
do we need to keep that data? Like if it's just for the night of and they're reporting every year, do we actually need to keep the data? I
Yeah,
mean,
I
if you
feel- I
move
feel like
forward
it's-
onto a tracking
It's
app,
how did
that's
you
one
do this
thing.
year?
But it's how did you do this year? And that way you're reducing the cost, the magic
So-
costs of
So it's
storage.
a separate thing. We're not
Mhm.
keeping years and years of data on like naughty or niceness, but we are keeping just like night of event. This is what was delivered last year.
Right. Okay.
So
We
that's
save that for
less.
12 months.
But- But should we be keeping the naughty or nice system? Not for this version, but in the future, what I'm thinking is, hey, this kid behaved meh. So does he get a gift? Well, actually, if you compare it to last year, he or she is much better. So maybe they do deserve a gift to relative.
Still a brat, but not as much of a brat.
Exactly. There's improvements, right?
Like,
you know,
like
most
one,
improved
I
player
can see
award,
the
yeah.
trends over time, and
I know. Then you're talking like, are you put what kind of database? Is it a graph? What are you doing?
Graph,
is this
like
is this data that Santa would like to collect and then eventually start selling?
Like have alerts, and are we doing alerts and notifications?
That's what they that's what I was looking for.
Is that
Like,
for the
this
three
one
kings? They want.
yeah, they want the data really.
They want. The data.
Okay.
Everyone wants the data.
Yeah, exactly. That's the magic place.
Santa's
I
not
guess
supposed to sell that data.
And the parents will just accept whatever's in the terms of service, right? They'll
Yeah.
just,
Oh,
No one reads it.
Yeah. They get free gifts, Santa gets free data. It's a win-win.
Oh man.
Oh, you can track improvement, by the way, without keeping all the data back. I mean, you can keep just the annual behavior
But-
for the past year
Yeah.
and add that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You don't need
Like
all
it-
the things.
Like, is it just summarized as like a score?
Yeah, exactly.
mm,
And then you're just comparing scores from one year versus a previous year.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's obviously like things we'd like to improve, things we wish we would have had time for last year. And obviously we don't have a lot of time this year. I think we just need to prioritize like what are the things that we can fit in that would make the most difference and get Santa into a place where he can start licensing this for other Christmas delivery services of various kinds.
and I think kind of going back to the white label feature, beyond the Three Kings, doesn't Santa go under different personas, aliases
Oh,
in
yeah.
different countries anyway? So
Papa
Father,
Noel.
Father Christmas, yeah, right. Like Kris Kringle. So he may already need that feature. So that kind of may kill two birds with one stone here. That the Three Kings can kind of come in under their Three Kings banner. Santa can use multiple. And again, I guess that only matters to the parents entering like whatever the UI where they enter their reports.
Yeah, that's like a part of the localization effort, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Well, we need to support other kind of variations on this, like Krampus, like where he comes and punishes the bad kids. So he's really mostly not looking out to deliver the good.
I don't know if
That's
Santa wants to
terrifying.
associate with
No,
Krampus.
there's no white label for Krampus.
Santa can decide who he wants to work with and who he wants to exclude or try to run out of business. So
Well, he
that's
might
we'll
get-
discuss that in our meeting with
He
him.
might get on the naughty list of running a monopoly.
That's true.
That's right.
Well, that's why he's trying to partner with the Three Kings and others to help his image so that it doesn't look like he's just trying to run all of Christmas himself.
So out of all this, what's the most important for Santa this year?
I think the multiple report today, I mean, we've gotten bad negative
Mhm.
feedback
More real
from
time.
the parents. So if they're not happy, if Santa's clients aren't happy, Santa's not happy.
That and the social media. Like I didn't really understand what type of social media monitoring they wanted. But I feel like we're probably running out of time soon, and we need to get to what those actual requirements are for us to put in this release.
Yeah, because I think current social media monitoring is only on Twitter and only hashtags. It's not pulling in like semantic anything or like monitoring anything more than like, oh, you happen to use this hashtag. That hashtag has a negative connotation, which is pretty unreliable and pretty easy to trick even if you're not trying, I guess.
And keep in mind that Elon is decommissioning half the microservices they have over there. So those APIs won't even work. So we
That's
can't
true.
do
Oh,
we
that's
can't dependably do
true.
monitoring. All right. Because it might fail at the last minute. And then what? So we can't risk it. We have
Right.
to take our dependence off of that.
Yeah, I think what Santa would want is like, what are the 2 or 3 key social media integrations we can get working that are kind of, we can set it up and then let it run rather than like putting a whole ton of resources into maintaining that if possible.
Maybe that's where we tie into TikTok.
Yeah, the thing is that Twitter seems to be the only one that is based on text.
Monitors.
The other ones are just video, right?
I mean, Do we even need to tie into social media is the question. Could our app just have a form that's very easy, click in, chat to submit, right? That way the data is kept private. It's only going to Santa. No really privacy concerns there. It's not made public to everyone.
I think
Uh,
this was
when
like
you're
the
collecting less
monitoring
data.
of like not stuff sent directly to Santa, but just monitoring what the activity is on social, like a parent complaining about their child on Twitter. He could kind of passively pull that data in too. Like they didn't actually tell me, but I've been seeing like, oh yeah, there's been a lot of complaints.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think another key part there is, can parents opt out of that if they're like, if they're kind of creeped out by Santa being that observant and they just want to be able to report things, can they opt out of social monitoring? Is that seen as like a perk, or is it seen as a potential like security concern?
It's full on creepy.
I think it's a little creepy.
And then the question is, are the algorithms doing this automatically, or is there some human in the loop, right? Does he have like some executive assistants that are actually looking at this and making sense of it and analyzing and then updating Santa's records? Because
Yeah, how
Santa doesn't have
automated
the
is all this?
capacity to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the key challenge with the initial request, was he was doing all of this by hand on just a paper list, and he's starting to get like wrist cramps updating and crossing out and erasing and all that kind of stuff. So how much can we automate the whole process so that it's not still manual entry, even if it's on a digital list?
I don't even know how he did it. I get a hand muscle cramp just writing a check.
Well, there is a key element we've discussed already of Christmas magic, making things
Right.
making things easier.
Okay, so priority is then from listening to this conversation, if we're looking at it, priority is the ability to have multiple reports or even stretch real time.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is just more regions supported than just the US. And then
More
on top
region-
of that,
okay.
Yeah, I think that's the priority.
Mhm.
And then on top of that is just more flexibility in terms of reporting options and like timeliness of the data getting to Santa.
Was there anything that we needed to cut that was like a feature that just
I think we should cut the Twitter, like the social monitoring
agree.
personally.
Okay.
I think because it's creeping some users out and it's not that versatile anyway. So
and we
it's kind
can't
of
depend
just,
on it at this
Yeah.
point
No.
for Twitter?
We
And I
can't.
get
Okay.
the impression Santa was wanting to just pull out all his dollars out of or his Kringles, whatever currency they use up there.
Pull it all out of Twitter.
Out of Twitter for now. There's
He's already-
with
yeah.
all the things that are going on. He
Well,
might be
plus-
moving to Mastodon.
Plus then, yeah, you're less dependent on someone else's system.
Okay.
You're less
So-
dependent on someone else's system, and you have more control over just your product and
I
everything.
think it was like a cool thing for the first version, but it just makes things more complicated and less secure. So let's
and
nix
then
it.
and then the support elves can focus more on other features and rather than just maintaining integrations.
Yeah. Do we want the real-time updates? How much was that really a problem? Did anything kind of come in last minute while Santa was in flight?
I
and
think we
Rudolph had
can-
to like redirect.
I think we can keep it every hour, but maybe like for the week of Christmas, it's real time. Like, is there some way
or
we
the
could do
night
that?
of-
Yeah, or like the
The
night
night-
of Christmas.
Yeah, we
in
could
the night
probably
of.
we have to build that in.
You need the
but we could
redemption
probably-
factor.
Yeah, we could
Well,
probably scale up for that night, and maybe I guess we did it on a polling mechanism, just increase
A
the
North
polling
polling
rate.
mechanism.
The next go around, I think we should really look into changing it to an event-based model
Yeah,
instead of polling. But given the short time, I think, just as it nears, it inversely decreases the duration polling intervals is probably sufficient.
So then the other key factor is international release and then kind of white label support for, but it sounds like we kind of need to get all our ducks in a row before Santa's comfortable licensing this out to the Three Kings or others.
Yeah, is that up to us to decide, or is that up to Santa to decide if
Well,
it's
I think
ready to go to
I think
Three Kings?
he's asked us for recommendations on what we think would be best, but ultimately it's actually Mrs. Claus's call. She is the boss after all.
It always is. Mhm.
So assuming we're able to get the we can kind of remove the social limiting factors, make real-time updates available on Christmas Day or Christmas night,
Mhm.
and then improve just like reporting functionality in general. Assuming those are done, I think Santa would be happy to start licensing this out. We just need to figure out like what does that practically look like in terms of kind of white labeling and how it's going to be used by others.
But are you saying we want them to do that this year?
I think that's probably a goal for like after, I guess that would be a goal for
Post-holiday.
next- Yeah,
I mean,
post-holiday.
So
Well,
we do this
we-
the week before Christmas Eve, and then the following
we do have a
we get
week.
ready.
We could get it
Yeah.
to Three
Three
Kings if
Kings
we
ready.
needed to. Mhm.
That's true, because yeah, there's a delay there.
There's 9 days.
That's plenty of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Funny.
But remember, we might have some hot fixes to do too, so don't factor that in as well.
Right. Well, and there's the question of how much can we rely on Santa's support elves for tackling stuff, or are they more so for just maintenance after we're done?
True. What are their skill set? How much
Would they
ramp up
benefit
need?
from some training?
Mhm.
And can remember if we deploy these in multiple regions or is everything in the US? Because going international also will require some redundancy across the globe, right? If Santa is over Russia and it's in the last hour of the Christmas Eve and you have polling, you cannot poll all the way up to the US. You need to have like a reasonable time delay in between the polls and the response, so you can have the data at the right rate. So we consider that in the first phase or not?
Yeah, I
remember
don't
we
know.
did
I
in
felt like
first
everything
phase.
was deployed to the North Pole with fairly equal reach to
Yeah.
because it's being so cold up there too, he saves a lot on data center costs.
Yeah.
And
Huh,
he doesn't have to run any air conditioning up there.
that makes sense. Okay.
They're super fast.
Okay, so I feel like the goal of this conversation was to make sure we had a plan for when we have our meeting with Santa. We have a good proposal for, hey, here's where we are, here's the things you've said are important to you. Are we feeling good about like overall the recommendations we have for Santa and
Yeah,
for the
I
improvements?
think so. I think the success of the first rollout, the first version, really built a good partnership between Xpero and Santa. So a lot of trust was built. So I think he's going to listen to our recommendations, and he's pretty reasonable, as we learned over the course
Right.
of
He's
the last
a
cycle.
pretty jolly fellow overall.
I mean, the fact that he's trusting us with his sort of 1 day a year big gig is, cause for celebration alone, I think.
Exactly.
Thanks for connecting with us today. We've had a lot of fun putting this episode together and just kind of playing with some of the questions that come up when you're in a more casual setting and talking about what a project may entail. And on that note, if you have a really complex problem that you're currently struggling to solve and would like some help, or you just have thoughts on what we talked about today, or maybe thoughts on what we should talk about next, please feel free to reach out to us at podcast@xperoinc.com or on Twitter @xperoinc. We'd love to hear from you, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Thanks again for connecting with us. Thank you, Kareem. I see you got my note that we need at least 5 bad puns from you in the course of this episode.
There was not a number, but I feel like there's been about 10.
That's what we need to design next, is just a Kareem pun counter.
How many go undetected because they were so bad no one noticed? Except Kareem.
I
So
don't even know
bad
if
or
we-
so good.
I don't even know if Kareem notices. They're just so natural to him. He doesn't even know when he's making puns anymore.
Yeah.